and faculty member and enhance of our skill in developing prevention effort for diabetes mellitus in Indonesia, particularly in the Jember region. We apologize in anything is amiss and hope this event proves beneficial to all participants. Before concluding my address, allow me to present a poem for Mr. Joel. In the break morning with Mr. Joel, we share knowledge, time fails us so fast. May everyone benefit unavoidable diabetes mellitus. Let's fight together until restored without hesitation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning.
Thank you. We express our gratitude to Ms. Susilawati SST MKels for delivering the welcoming address. Moving on to the main event, we have the presentation by Dr. Joel Roy Acob, PhD, which will be moderated by our very own Anissa Firial Mailana Sari. But before that, allow me to invite my colleagues. Anissa, have you joined us?
Hello, Rani.
Great. Anissa, are you ready to guide us through today's presentation and discussion?
Of course. Honestly, I'm thrilled for this opportunity.
Excellent. In that case, I'll hand over proceeding to the moderator. Please proceed.
Okay, thank you, Rani, for the warm introduction. I hope everyone is excited to hear from our expert speaker today. So, hello, everyone. My name is Anissa Fidel Milanasari. It's a big honor for me to serve as the moderator for today's expert lecture. Okay, so as we gather here today, we are confronted with a critical health issue that resonates deeply within our society, the alarming trend of excessive sugar intake among adolescents. This widespread problem not only jeopardizes the well-being of our youth, but also has long-term health implications. Uncontrolled sugar intake among adolescents lead to increased risk of obesity and type 2 diabetes and various cardiovascular complications. And according to the data from the International Diabetes Federation in 2021, Indonesia ranks 6th in the world for the highest number of deaths due to diabetes, with a staggering 236,000 lives lost. This number is expected to double or triple within the next decade. Therefore, it is crucial to address this issue directly with experts by discussing controlling sugar intake in adolescents. Okay, so before we invite our speaker, let me briefly introduce Dr. Joel Ray Acob, PhD. Pardon me for Mr. Dr. Joel Ray Acob. Can you please share screen your CV, please?
I already gave that to Dr. Tika this morning, but it's okay. it's okay if there will be no introduction. I will I maybe the CV later on will be given later, because what is important is we have to, start with the discussion, because this is really an opportunity for exchange of idea. So no problem with me if no introduction for the speaker. It's fine.
It's
Okay, Mr.
So I will proceed now for my presentation.
I'm sorry, Mr. I will share screen CV.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. So, Dr. Joel Ray Acob is currently affiliated with faculty member for nursing Visayas State University, Philippines, and he registered nurse at 2010. He holds Master of Arts in Nursing SP Medical Surgical Nursing at 2011, Doctor in Nursing Science at 2019, postdoctoral fellowship in Airlangga University at 2021. Her expertise lies in caring science, elderly care gerontology, nursing education, management research, health management, leadership and management, quality assurance, and accreditation measure. Course taught and handled nursing leadership and management with jurisprudence, nursing research and education, coordinated school health programs, health ethics, quality management, medical surgical nursing, gerontology, fundamentals of nursing, theoretical foundation of nursing, and nursing pharmacology. You can reach Dr. Joel Ray Acob via email at joel.acob at psu.ed.uph, or you can contact by WhatsApp at +63 9569161146. Prior to her current position is Dr. Joel Ray Acob worked as clinical instruction start from 2011 until now. Destination, College Dean at July 2020, August 2022. College Secretary 2019 until 2020. Focal Person for Philippine Quality Award of VSU at 2023. Co-chairperson Health Research Commodity of VSU at 2021 until now, and member TUWG on College of Medicine of VSU. Other designated non-academic function: editor-in-chief to peer-reviewed nursing journals, reviewer to international journals, member of the Technical Working Group or TWG in research function, AACCUP program accreditor, internal quality auditor or IQA of ISO 9001 at 2015. Publication engagement since 2018. Number of research reviewed for publication as of January 2024. Publication in peer-reviewed journals as of January 2024. Citation as of January 2024. H index as of January 2024. I-10 index as January at 2024. And here's the research related links and journal repository at Google Scholar or Chat at Scientific Index and ResearchGate. Affiliated journal and publication are Malaysian Journal of Nursing, editorial member and reviewer, Journal of Science and Technology of Biliran Province State University, Belitung Nursing Journal, Nursing Education Today, Universitas Pajajaran Journal, Tarana Awan, Journal of Educational Research Engage Management of Eastern Visayas State University, West Visayas State University Journal ILO, Alliance of Health Activist Journal Indonesia. Okay, so now may I invite Dr. Joel Ray Acob. Good morning, Dr. Joel.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
How are you today, Mr.? And how do you feel about joining us virtually?
Yeah, I'm very happy for gracing your event today. And this is I think I cannot count how many times I've been to Malang virtual conference, and I've also visiting Indonesia almost every year. So I hope to be back this year in Indonesia. But I'm very happy for inviting me around in your special lecture.
Great to hear that from you, Dr. Joel. So are you ready to deliver your presentation now?
Sure, I'm ready.
Great. Just to inform you, Dr. Joel, you'll have 90 minutes for your presentation and followed by a 30 minutes discussion session. Okay, Dr. Joel, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Let me share my screen. I hope you're able to see my screen now.
Yes, Mr.
Okay. Again, good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity that you have given in order to impart knowledge on issues that is very important and critical nowadays, especially that our adolescents or the younger population is um, is on the next line of part of the nation building. And it is important that we have to take care of the health components of our youth because they are the future of our nation. And so it is important that we have to educate them not only in the educational aspect of the different degree programs, more importantly, on the health component. because nobody will become successful even no matter what degree they obtain or whatever doctoral degree they have. But if they are not well, if they are sick, if they are ill, then there is poor chances of success in the future. And so this early, we wanted to address one of the non-communicable disease as identified, which is diabetes mellitus. And my role for today is to give you promotive and preventive approaches in order to decrease the intake of sugar in adolescents. I said decrease because we cannot eliminate the sugar intake. Even if we are not fond of drinking coffee, like the coffee that I usually miss when I go to Indonesia, I have this special coffee that I usually have. And also your delicious food, your local food, like your goreng, your bebek goreng, and whatsoever. These are not sweet, but this contains sugar. This contains starch or glucose that may increase also the rate of chances of sugar in our bloodstreams or our body. So our goal is not to eliminate sugar, but to decrease the chances of acquiring this diabetes because whatever we take in for survival, there is sugar or glucose in it. Okay, so my talk is addressing the SDG number 3 and number 4. SDG number 3 is about good health and well-being, and number 4 is quality education. So, the contents of my discussion is to have a brief review of the diabetes mellitus. I know you already know about diabetes mellitus, but I wanted to have a refresh definition for the context so that we will be able to connect our management later on. And we will also be presenting the statistics or the data of diabetes mellitus among adolescents. Although our moderator earlier mentioned about the statistics or the prevalence of diabetes in according to the International Federation, which I'm surprised that I also included that. And but I have to go deeper and would like to interpret what is the number telling us and how can we help these numbers to decrease. And we have to note the complications of the type 2 diabetes mellitus, although we have two general classifications of our DM. We have type 1 and type 2, but we will focus on the complications of type 2 and the different strategies that we can introduce, like the prevention and the control of the diabetes mellitus, specifically on the vulnerable population, which is the young people. And I would like also to share some of the activities like research activities or research topic or community extension activity that your institution can invest on in order to prevent this diabetes mellitus in your respective community. Because as educators, as academic community, we also have responsibility to disseminate and to conduct different endeavors to our community in order to stop the increasing rate of diabetes mellitus. So, as I've mentioned, this is just a review of the definition of diabetes as a metabolic disturbance with hyperglycemia. So, when there is increase of glucose in the bloodstream and resulting into the deficiency of insulin hormone and insulin resistance. So we have further classified in your different lectures about diabetes that if the body produces insulin and the insulin is the vehicle for the glucose to be transported into our cellular level, and these glucose will be converted into forms of energy for an individual to continue their activities of daily living. So again, glucose is important. But when there is too much of glucose in our body and our body cannot produce insulin sufficient based on the requirement of the glucose loading, then there would be a possible disturbance. And this disturbance, when not treated, will lead into diabetes mellitus, either type 1 or type 2, or the worst will be the cardiovascular diseases and their different complications. So again, there is increase of glucose in the bloodstream, and the problem is the insulin is not sufficient, or the insulin is no longer produced by our pancreas. So there is two problem: production of insulin, but not sufficient, and there is absence of insulin because of the malfunctioning of our pancreas. So that leads to type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes, respectively. Another definition or another study, according to Kazrai and his company in 2014, they mentioned that the diabetes mellitus is harming not only the bloodstream, not only the cardiovascular diseases, but to all other organs in the body, not only limited to the eyes, not only limited to the kidneys, and to the different system nerves. So all of these, if you noticed, are needing blood supply. So when there is problem in the cardio, in the heart, and in the vessel, which is, of course, the bloodstream carrying uh, viscous blood or concentrated blood because of the increase in glucose, there would be affectation. There would be effects of this to the different organs, and the effect is harm. So, the global prevalence of type 2 diabetes, as you can see here, in North America, in European countries, in the Western Pacific, in the Africa, there is a growing number, and this diabetes is an alarming issue. But I would like to focus on Southeast Asia, wherein Philippines and Indonesia are countries part of this continent. And so, in the Southeast Asia in 2021, according to the International Diabetes Federation, there is an increase of 90 million population who are experiencing diabetes mellitus. And in 2021, diabetes mellitus kills as many as 7.3 million people in Indonesia. And in 2030, this federation is expecting to have 11.8 million of death cases because of diabetes mellitus. So we are in 2024 now. There is 6 years. From 6 years from now, when we do not prevent this phenomenon, this non-communicable disease, then most probably the death rate because of diabetes mellitus will increase into almost 12 million. And this figure is 61% from that of 2021 census. And based on the studies, it's not directly type 2 diabetes mellitus being the problem. And there is what we call pre-diabetes stage. What is pre-diabetes? The pre-diabetes is when there is increase of blood sugar higher than normal, but that figure is not enough to be considered or for the patient to be diagnosed as a type 2 diabetes. Meaning, we are more than beyond the border rate. Say, for example, if our blood glucose level should be 80 to 120, there is a slight increase of your blood glucose level, but it's not sufficient to be called or to be diagnosed as type 2 diabetes mellitus. In type 2 diabetes, the person is able to produce insulin, but it is not enough because of the increased glucose loading. So that's type 2. So, but before we reach type 2, there is this what we call prediabetes, meaning within 80 to 120, your glucose reading is a bit higher than the 120, but is not enough. It is not suffice to say that you are type 2 diabetes. And this period here is the most crucial because we tend, especially from the adolescents, we tend to be, everything to have in a normal pacing. We do not control whatever intake of sugar we have, and only to find out it is on the later part of life that we recognize that there is already your type 2 diabetes. So this pre-diabetes is critical. That's why the management would be education and preventive approaches. And so in the pre-diabetes, there is increasing risk of developing type 2 because this is something that we do not recognize in the earlier stage. We believe that it's normal for an adult client to have more intake of glucose. Anyway, they are very much active with their activities of daily living, or they have like strenuous activities, or they are very much active in terms of sports, in terms of example, different activities that requires a lot of energy. So in the pre-diabetes, there is exposure of the risk of developing type 2 and heart diseases. So who are these people at risk for the pre-diabetes? According to the statistics, this is on the adolescents. That's why we have to address this one. Those aging 12 to 18 years old, and the ratio is 1 in 5 population aging 12 to 18 years old are experiencing pre-diabetic stage. And 1 in every 4 population aging 19 to 34 years old are diagnosed with the pre-diabetes. So if you notice with the age 12 to 18, 19 years old, by definition of the World Health Organization, they are called teenager. They're called adolescents. And the 34 years old, from 20 to 34 years old, this is the period where we seldom recognize the importance of nutrition or exercise or whatever we take in because we are still on our peak of career and we are still active. So we sometimes neglect or disregard that whatever we take in anyway will be removed, will be dissolved, will be digested properly because we are very much active on this span of years. But then again, the crucial part is there is prediabetes, which is higher in males and people who are obese. According to the literature, this prediabetes is higher in males because of the lifestyle or the sedentary lifestyle, because of smoking, because of too much intake of alcoholic beverages. And the literature is telling us that between gender, male and female, males are more into alcoholic beverages, are more into smoking engagements. That's why in the prediabetes, the prevalence is more of to males rather than female. But I am not saying that the women or the females are not or cannot be acquiring the pre-diabetes signs and symptoms. Okay, so so in the pre-diabetes, in the census, in the report by the International Federation, there are more than 8 in 10 adults with prediabetes who do not know that they have this already. So you now try to contemplate your age at the moment. If you are within 12 to 18 or 19 to 35, if we are not careful of what we are intaking or digesting into, you may have at the moment the pre-diabetes stage. And the statistic is telling us that in every 10 population aging from 12 to 18 and 19 to 35, they do not know that they have the diabetes. So when the type 2 comes in, when they're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, it's too late for them to address because this is statistics telling us that they left not knowledgeable about their condition. And in the US alone, 98 million of their population have pre-diabetes. So what are the risk factors? I made mention about the risk factors of type 2 diabetes. I am not after of the type 1 because we should take care first of the type 2 because we can still do something, a preventive and promotive activities to address the factors of the type 2. And based on the risk factors, I will be suggesting different strategies to address the type 2 diabetes. So what are the risk factors? There are plenty, but I only focus on 5. Number 1 is obesity and overweight. Well, because of the COVID-19, one of the stress relieving activities, especially on the adolescents, is to take in food. If we are eating much, if we are not eating on the right amount or in the right time, that leads to malnutrition. And the malnutrition could either be undernourished or overnourished, meaning you eat a lot because you are stressed. And sometimes we do not eat because we are also in stress. But one of the risk factor is the overweight, meaning we have to go back with our base metabolic index, our BMI, such suggested based on our average age ranges, and that we need to work out that we will be on that normal age range BMI so that we will be avoiding those factors that leads to diabetes mellitus type 2. So the overweight, the obesity, sometimes adolescents will have to, will just be not so careful or will not be that mindful about the weight or their body structure, their body built, because for them it's normal to gaining weight because you are stressed and that's why you have food as a comfort avenue for you to relieve your stress. That leads to obesity and overweight. But then again, this is still malnutrition. Another risk factor is the lack of exercise. Although we encourage people to, engage into a different exercise in order to burn fats and to properly distribute the glucose level in our streams or to be transported into the cellular level to be converted into energy. But there are adolescents who prefer to stay at home and doing mobile games in their rooms. And they no longer interact or they no longer associate or mingle with their peers or their friends, no? Because of the technology, sometimes we are trying to isolate ourselves because we find more enjoyment or more satisfaction when we are doing things by ourselves. And that leads now to the sedentary lifestyle. We lack the opportunity to stretch. We lack the opportunity for a simple walk or to a simple, do different exercise with the aim of reducing the risk of type 2. Another is poor diet. Everything is instant. We want instant things in life. Instant coffee, instant noodles, instant, commercially prepared, highly preserved foods over the counter in the in the in the mall, for example, or in the what do you call this? The Endomaret. I fam I remember the Endomaret. Now, every time I go to Indonesia, there's a lot of Endomaret in Indonesia. And you can see there in their fridge, in their frozen products, those are preserved foods. And for us, it is nice, but sometimes when too much intake of these now leads to a problem, and that is poor diet. Because we are busy, we find it difficult to cook, we find it difficult to go to the market and buy vegetables, and we cook our own food. Because we are busy, because we are students, or sometimes we do not have much time on cooking our food or cooking meals, then we sort of these instant products. I'm not saying it's wrong, but when there is too much of that, that is indicative of the poor dieting, which is contributing to the factors to type 2 diabetes. And when that happens, the body will compensate. Of course, because our body is in need of oxygenated blood. And because of the poor intake, because of the sedentary lifestyle, because of the gaining weight, there would be increase of blood pressure. Although blood pressure is not a disease, but this is telling us that there's something wrong in our body that we need to address. And the last is smoking and heavy drinking are also risk factors of type 2 diabetes. If you remember what I mentioned earlier, that most of the prediabetes are for male individuals, as I've said, because research tells us that males are more into drinking and more into smoking engagement. And that predisposes them double over females. So, what happens when these risk factors may occur in life? This now leads to the struggle which is confronted by our younger generation. Remember, I've made mentioned earlier that, in Indonesia, it's good that the life expectancy is at least 75 and above. That's the life expectancy. But if we cannot address these non-communicable diseases, the life expectancy will go down, and there will be like increased rate of death at a younger age. That's a problem. And remember that between Indonesia and Philippines, Indonesia is quite bigger in terms of the population, in terms of the land space. Yeah, because Indonesia, I think you have 17,000 islands. How many islands do you have? 17 or around? Yeah, it's more than 17,000. But our island in the Philippines is only 7,100. In terms of the population, our population is only like 100 million or 109 million, maybe now. But your population is higher than that. That's the reason why one of the proposals of your government is to transfer the capital city. It's no longer in Jakarta. There's a move now that there will be a transfer of your capital city because it's crowded already. And I think Indonesia already elected their president. Are you already in your election? You have your new president, right?
Yes, we had.
Yes, and it's very challenging because if you notice, one of the problem in Indonesia now is malnutrition and iron deficiency and teenage pregnancy and your diabetes mellitus. Because you have a larger population and a number of islands, you have a very big land space. It would be very difficult for you to take care of your population. And remember that most of your, should I say, economy is saturated only on bigger islands like in Java Island or in Surabaya or in East Java area. Most of them because of, economy, because of education, because of business, because of industry. The healthcare is very good in your area. But if you're going to look into a bigger picture, there's a lot of people living outside of this East Java area. You are producing a lot of nurses or healthcare professionals, but in reality, same as that with our country, most of them are living in the metropolitan city. In Surabaya, for example, or in Java, for example, because the industry, the business, the opportunity is there. And that in some rate, some of you are migrating outside of Indonesia because you wanted to practice nursing in Australia, in UK, or in the US. So the struggle remains that if we do not take care of the younger population, especially on the issue of diabetes, then who will take care of the older generation? And who will take care of your people in the community? Although you have your cadre, your cadre, no, your community health workers, but they need more empowerment from you as future nurses or healthcare providers. So this becomes a problem that we need to solve. We do not want to wait for 2030 to happen, the 11 million death of diabetes. We have to prevent that through our implementation of the promotive and preventive management. But we can only do that if we're able to recognize what are the problems or the struggle of our youth when it comes to type 2 diabetes. Number one is the trauma of diagnosis, because we do not want to be like traumatized. We do not want to be diagnosed early because we're afraid that of our young age we get to have some maintenance medication to lower our blood sugar. We failed to pay visit to the doctor or to the healthcare facility for proper guidance or for proper control of our diabetes or for the problem related to the increase of blood glucose. So there is trauma. That's one of the struggle. Just like your HIV, its HIV also is increasing. We are afraid. There is stigma. There is trauma when we know that we have this kind of disease. So just like HIV and your diabetes mellitus, they're also afraid of knowing that because of excess intake of glucose or sugary products, we tend to increase our sugar level. And that is, we don't want to be like admitting ourselves for the evaluation or for the different diagnostic treatment to address the problem the earliest time possible. That's trauma of diagnosis. Another is the fear of complication. We know that when there is diabetes, aside from the risk factors, that would also lead to a different associated diseases. And the worst is a loss of a body part or loss of limb. There might be non-healing wound, which now leads to amputation later on. But good to know that some of the institutions in Indonesia, they have this what we call hyperbaric nursing or hyperbaric management. I remember one in I think one of the hospitals in your naval base that they have this hyperbaric nursing or management in order to prevent further complications or at least save a an extremity because of wound or non-healing wound. But then again, the one of the struggle of the youth now is they have fear of the complication. Another is understanding the cause. The problem is they do not know the reason why they have this. Remember, this is not communicable. This is lifestyle associated. Another problem is self-surveillance. For them, this is like demanding of time. This is demanding of extra resources aside from the basic necessities or the budget that the family has to work with. If you will be diagnosed, you will have additional responsibility, like the monitoring session. You have to go to the clinic for the periodic examination, and that eats a lot of time and your resources. That's one of the struggle. So they prefer not to be diagnosed. They prefer not to visit the facility. And the last is the support system. They feel ashamed that they will become isolated in their group or in their peer the moment they know that they have already the diabetes. So they are afraid that they will be out of the circle. They will afraid that they will be rejected by their friends or their colleagues or their peers. They would feel afraid that they will be living alone themselves because they don't have the support system or the community is not able to establish a support group that would empower each other, that would motivate each other to be open with their health conditions. So those are their struggles. Our role is simple. That is to decrease the risk of factors and complications and increasing the prevention and control awareness. That is the approach that we wanted to address. We do not wait for a type 2 or type 1 to happen, but as early as now, we need to stop the pre-diabetes episode. Again, the approach is simple, and that is decrease the risk factor and complication through increasing awareness, prevention, and control measure. For that to happen, I would like you to focus on the acronym sweets. Of course, the sugar is very sweet. Okay, but do not get me wrong. You should not increase the sugar, but I'm using the word sweets for you to remember that we need to prevent and control. What is first S? Number one is see your doctor and have your sugar tested. Remember that in the previous slide, I made mention on the youth struggle and they have this fear for diagnosis. They don't want to be diagnosed. There is no way we can determine the increase of sugar. There's no way we can determine the extent of damage without seeking for medical doctor. Therefore, we have to inform them right then and there, regardless if you have type 1 or type 2, regardless if you are experiencing signs and symptoms of prediabetes, we really have to establish and to know the fact that what is our blood sugar level this moment. And that is through visiting our doctor. Now, there is a misconception when we go to the doctor. We believe we try to erase that in our mindset that going to the doctor, visiting to the doctor does not mean you are sick or you have problem or you have medical condition. Seeing to the doctor is part of our preventive measure. We have what we call wellness checkup. We have what we call annual executive examination, meaning to say, whether you feel okay or not, you really have to see your doctor. Because what happens now is we just go to the hospital when we are feeling in pain. We just go to the hospital when we are not good in terms of health. We just go to the hospital if we feel ill, if we feel that there is something wrong in our body. That's too late. Remember that in the management of the diabetes and for us to control the sugar to increase is prevention, and that is paying visit to your doctor and have your sugar level tested. Another is weight regulation. I am not saying that you have to lose weight or to increase weight because it is dependent on you. What is important is we're able to regulate our weight based on our BMI, the basal metabolic index or the body metabolic index. So if you are underweight based on BMI, then you have to increase your weight. Because if you are malnourished, if you are underweight, there are also problems. Maybe not diabetes, but another problem or iron deficiency. Okay, so you have to regulate the weight. How to do that is you need to compute your own BMI based on your age range. Another is eat nutritious and healthy age appropriate diet. When I say nutritious food, it doesn't mean expensive food. When I say healthy food, it must be age appropriate. Of course, we have different body requirement based on our body structure or body build. So we have to be sensitive on the kind of food. But the premise tells us that the food should be balanced diet. When you say balance, it is a good representation of food for go foods, for grow foods, for glow foods, for if you are very much active with the exercise or whatsoever, if you are into outdoor activities, therefore that demands more energy, therefore your diet should be based on the kind of activities of daily living that you are engaged into. That is nutritious and health age appropriate diet. Another is educate on the positive health practices such as exercise. When I talk about positive health practices, education, it doesn't mean that you have to enroll yourself to the gym for, for your exercise. If you find like walking or walking along with your dogs in the morning, or should I say, watering the plant, or doing house gardening or backyard gardening as a form of exercise, then do it for as long as you're able to ensure that what you have intaken in are properly digested or you're properly sweat so that it will not be accumulated into your bloodstreams. Remember, diabetes is increase of glucose in the blood. Therefore, you need to ensure that your glucose will be properly digested or be properly utilized or converted into energy. That's education and positive health practices. Another is trained self discipline. For me, this is the most important thing because no matter how we are good at in terms of the intervention, no matter how we emphasize the importance of diet, of regulation, of exercise, but ourself is not trained. We are not disciplining ourselves. Remember that too much of everything is critical, meaning I am not saying that you have to decrease your sugar. I did not say that you have to have fasting. You have to eat. You have to drink. It should be balanced at all times. But in excess to that, that becomes dangerous. Why we are in excessive consumption, that means to say we failed to discipline ourselves. Okay? So we need to train self-discipline. We have to have that attitude or values within us for self-discipline. And the last is support system and advocacy. One of the struggle of the youth now is they fail to express themselves because of the fear of isolation. They are afraid of being neglected, or they feel that they don't have someone to talk to. Therefore, one of the important preventive management is the establishment of advocacy centers or support system in our community. These are the researchable areas that I wanted to share with you as an academic community. Number one, you can have a research talking on the importance of building the future of adolescents with diabetes mellitus. What would be the future of these adolescents? You may also have a research on the psychosocial or psychological support for young adults with diabetes mellitus. You may also have research on the policy acting on the welfare among the care provider and support of patients with diabetes. You may also conduct extension or community activities about the role and the engagement of the academic community in the promotive and preventive strategies about DM, especially when we submit our institution for higher ranking or national accreditation. Usually they will ask, what is your contribution? What is your role in your community or in the community where your school is located in terms of your mandate? If your mandate is on nutrition, your mandate is on diet, your mandate is on healthy people across lifespan, then what are the activities that your school is implementing in order to become visible and your presence is felt in the people within your community? So that is a good community extension program. Another is you may also have research on the experiences on the adolescents on how they maintain healthy lifestyle, their activities in order to maintain good health. And another extension is the development of the community-based support system or group for those adolescents with diabetes mellitus. And I think that's the end of my presentation. Terima kasih.
Okay, you're welcome, Mr. Joel. Okay, now we will open the floor for question and discussion. So for the audience member who have questions, you can please use a raise hand feature or write the question at the chat feature. Okay, here I have a first question is from the chat. Let me read the question first. Good morning, sir. Permission in advance. I am Maria Amelia from the credit transfer class. Permission to ask what the impact is on teenagers who consume sweet coffee every day because it is already difficult to stop. So what are the first steps teenagers should take to control their sugar consumption? Thanks.
Yeah. Um, I share the same sentiment or experience to Ria Amelia. Me too. I really love coffee. Remember that, well, personally, I consume coffee like 6 cups every day. So every time I remember that when every time I visit Indonesia, my friend will always give me Loa coffee. The Loa coffee. It's very expensive. Yeah. But when I went to last year, I went to Banda Aceh and yes, Banda Aceh, very far, the Banda Aceh. They gave me their coffee and it's very sweet. Yeah. But going back to the question of Ria, the impact of teenagers who consume sweet coffee every day, there is really impact. And again, that is, accumulation of sugar in in the body or in the bloodstreams. As I have said, uh, no problem when there is loading of sugar. But what is important is you are like responsible enough on the different activities that may help in the faster digestion or the faster uh consumption of sugar in your body. It is very difficult to stop coffee intake because it has caffeine, and caffeine, for what we know, is addictive. It is sometimes needed in our body. That's why when there is decrease of caffeine in our body, the brain will recognize, oh, there is already decreased amount of caffeine, and that triggers you or me or anyone to drink more cup of coffee. These are stimulant. It has a caffeine, which is a stimulant, is somewhat addictive. Therefore, it is difficult. But then again, when I mentioned about the last slide on the sweets, there must be training, self-discipline for yourself. I am not saying that you have to stop right away the intake of coffee because that makes your day. Your coffee a day is that completes your day. So instead of abruptly removing that in your system, you have to gradually remove that. So on my end, say for example, I take in 6 cups of coffee a day, and why I wanted to remove that from my being. Therefore, I can have it on a gradual motion, like 5 cups, then 4 cups, then 3 cups. That is gradual removal of your caffeine source in the body. Because if you will abrupt that one, this will also lead into other problem. We have what we call the withdrawal syndrome. You may experience like tingling or tremors, fine tremors for those who are not taking caffeine or abruptly removing caffeine in their body. So again, Ria, it is not it is not bad to have coffee, but should we wish to eliminate or to have a healthy lifestyle, or if we wanted to have an healthy aging in the future, we have to start disciplining ourselves right now. And that is to, gradually recognize that we need to taper down. We need to slow down when it comes to use of coffee and a sweetener in it. Me, on my end, I don't usually put sugar on my coffee because coffee has its beneficial effect, and that one is like a form of detoxifying our body. Or coffee is cleansing, you know, material in our body. Should you wish to put sugar really to have a taste like acceptable? Because if that is a bitter taste, it would also be, not good to taste at. No, we lost the intention of why we have coffee. When we talk of coffee, we always think of sweetness of the coffee, the aroma of the coffee. But then again, associated to the aroma and sweetness is diabetes mellitus. So we have to lessen the amount of sugar or to slowly eradicate the sugar component. Or should you wish not to remove the sugar level of your coffee, you can like deprive yourselves from eating some foods that may contain increased amount of sugar. Example, when we have like a coffee, sugar in it, and a sweet donut in it, that for me it's too much. So you have to weigh your source of sugar. Yeah. I hope I was able to answer the question. And the last thing, the impact. Again, the impact, we cannot feel that right away. The impact is longer, and maybe it's too late for us to recognize that the impact is irreversible in nature. And that we do not want to happen that. We have to prevent that as early as now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joel. So, according to Dr. Joel' answer, we don't need to aggressively eliminate our coffee habit, but we just need to reduce our consumption, especially the sugar component. Is that right, Dr. Joel? Okay, now we move to second questioner here. There is Resti Maulida. Can you please open your mic?
Okay, thank you for your time, Anissa Firial, for giving me time. Good morning, sir, Joel Ray Acob. Hello, my name is Resti Molida. I want to ask your tips and tricks. Personally, being a woman, sometimes we are craving for something sweet in period. That is continue to the end of period. So I need your advice how to stop this craving. Thank you, sir.
The craving is something that is involuntary in nature because it is your brain telling you to eat this and eat that. And the only way we can control the craving is to control yourself and disciplining yourself. So there's no problem about the craving. There's no problem about sweets, I tell you. But what is important is we are able to discipline ourselves. Too much, as I've said, too much of everything is dangerous. Too much of everything is putting us in harm or danger. And so therefore, the craving is there to, sometimes we have to reward ourselves when we are achieving or when we accomplish things. Of course, eating for me is the most common form of reward to anyone. Or when you miss someone or when you are like accomplishing things, you have to eat together, and that's a form of socialization. But make sure that it is within limits. we cannot control. For me, technically, I cannot control you or anyone regarding your sugar intake. It is for your own consumption. But the tip there is you have to know your limits. You have to know your the possible consequence of having much intake of glucose. It would be very impractical that you have increase of glucose because you are celebrating accomplishment, and at the end of the day you are ending yourself in the hospital bed. For me, it's wrong. It's really wrong. And don't we do not want to happen that, especially on the kind of healthcare that we have, or the healthcare system, or the number of nurses that we are in manning the hospitals. uh, the institution might be overwhelmed in the influx of patients with increased number of diabetes. And so the what do you call this? The the enthusiasm to eat sweet food is okay. It's fine. There's nothing wrong to that. But then again, the thing of disciplining ourselves and knowing our boundaries are the most important uh, consideration to prevent these complications, or to prevent our pre-diabetes to progress into type 2 or type 1 diabetes mellitus. So for me, those are the tips. And by the way, before I forgot, if we notice that when although it's not adolescents, but I don't know if you have adolescents who are experiencing like this, like if you are an honor student, if you accomplish, if you are an achiever, sometimes because of the parents who are very proud of their son achieving, they will treat foods, or they will treat, this into like a group of people with a lot of food in it. Remember that it's nice to have a food. It is a basic need, but please do not use food as a form of reward. Do not use food as a form of reward. You can reward your sons and daughters. You can reward yourself by, simple appreciation, by simple, commending or recognizing, oh, that you are doing well in class. But the problem there is every time they have achievement, you always give them food. And how do we prevent now pre-diabetes stage? If that motivates the individual to keep going, to be excelling every now and then because of the reward of food. Yes, the child is an achiever, but the problem is the child is diabetic because we use food as a form of reward. Same as that with adolescents. When we have small wins, when we have small milestones in our lives, there's a lot of ways, there are other means on how to reward the person, not necessarily in the form of food. You can recognize the person for being good. You can recognize the person by giving certificate or a simple commendation or gesture or token. But as much as possible, food should be the least of the priority as a form of reward or recognition. I hope I was able to give the message on the importance of preventing the diabetes by using the food. Yeah.
Okay, Mr. Joel, thank you for the very relevant answer to us as teenagers who often use sweet food as a reward for us. Has the question been answered, Resti?
Yes, I'm clearly understand what you say about it and a little bit insulted about it. Because when end of the class, me and my friends is always going to the market or going to the little cafe to have a little celebrated. Just make me insulted today. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Now we move to third questioners comes from Ma'am Jenny Palupi. To Ma'am Jenny Palupi, please convey your question. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Julray. I'm lecturer in Prodi Kebidanan Jember Poltekkes Kemenkes Malang. I have two material. Number one and first, I have opinion gitu ya. Saya punya pendapat gitu ya. The government must have a role in regulation sugar for drinking and food that is sold freely. The meaning is sticker. I still read on the packaging in the list of sugar in milligram, but I think it's still high. Number two, how in how in uh, how in regulating in Philippines about this. Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I understand that the role of the government is very important in the regulation of the distribution of foods and resources, in order also to decrease the chances of diabetes. But we have to remember, in as much as the government wanted to reduce that, but the government cannot stop the industry or the economy from moving on. If these private industries who are producing this food or who are producing this like beverages with an amount of sugar or glucose in it or sugar in it, the role of the government is, for me, on responsible information that this consumer should be responsible enough to consume about the food intake. Or should we say, for example, in the tobacco use, the cigarette smoking, it's also one of the risk factors for diabetes. We cannot stop because tobacco is a $1 million industry, and the government cannot work or will be paralyzed without tax or yes, taxes remittance from these business owners. So instead of stopping that, there is the move of the government, but simply on educating or responsibly informing the people to be responsibly consuming these resources rather than stopping it. Because of course, what will happen to the economy when the cigar smoking or the tobacco industry will be lost? What will happen to the economy when the private business owners will stop producing their liquor or their carbonated beverages to be sold out in the market? Well, on your end, I am very much happy to note that in your place, in Indonesia, uh, you are really strict in terms of selling your alcoholic beverages. I have not seen that in the entire of Indonesia, except in Bali, because Bali is, a tourist destination. And I understand one of my friend told me that in Bali, they are allowed to sell this liquor or this alcoholic beverages or this cigar or tobacco because of the nature of industry. But the rest of the Indonesia, there's none. So that's why I always drink your lower coffee, your tea, and your water every time I go to your places. So the policy is not really to stop, and it's not really to eliminate that, because we have to choose the lesser evil. Both are evilous acts, but the role of the government or the policymakers is to choose which is more beneficial. They have to choose which has, although it has negative effect, but it also contributes to a positive industry, should I say economy, or the booming economy of your community. So in as much as they wanted to like reduce or to remove that totally, it is for me a very long issue or that needs more debate. Should we have to stop that one, buying, selling all these alcoholic beverages? But we don't have control beyond that. The mere fact that we elect our new president, your new president, the mere fact that you elect your own leaders in your community, you are trusting to their decision making. So therefore, we don't have much control about it. What we can do is to control our own selves because we have control by our own self. Nobody is manipulating us. So the policy is good. It is very appreciated, but most importantly, I will go back to my preventive control, which is sweets, is to discipline ourselves to be more responsible with ourselves in the consumption of these sources that will increase the glucose level. So that in the Philippines, that's also the same thing. The government will just release a memorandum, a policy that you have to drink moderately. You have to use like a tobacco or smoking at your own pace. But remember, if this is like your tobacco cover, uh there is a warning that tobacco will lead you to a lung disease, and yet we are selling this to the public. So that means to say it is now your discretion. It is now your within control, your own decision. Should you continue increasing intake of alcohol or increasing intake of glucose or increasing intake of cigarette smoking? After all, it is yourself that you are in control with. So that's how I understand, or that's my stand regarding the policy or the government's role in the eradication or decreasing the rate of complication following diabetes mellitus.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joe. Thank you. Kasih Anissa.
Okay, terima kasih Bu Jenny. Thank you, Mr. Joel. Now let's move on to the next question. Here we have many question lining up in the chat column. Let me read them out. Oh, I'm sorry. There is a questioners from Dahnita Afridiana. To Dahnita Afridiana, can you convey the question, please?
Okay, so I am Dahnita Afridiana from Credit Transfer Class. I want to ask, how can it be if adolescent has maintained his lifestyle as much as possible, but he still has diabetes mellitus? If the genetics is the biggest causal factor in this, how should we prevent diabetes mellitus in this case? Is he need for lifelong treatment related to insulin resistance? Thank you, doctor.
Yeah. So when the problem really is genetic by nature, we cannot do otherwise. We cannot prevent that diabetes to happen, but we can help in a way to lengthen the lifespan of the person or preventing more complications to arise. So if the problem is, of course, the genetic makeup, we don't have yet the technology to change the genetic composition of the person. It must be, and well, if that's the case, if we do not want, well, I'm telling you this to the adolescents because you'll be making a family of your own, that for us to prevent this, you have to be very careful in choosing your partner or your husband or your wife in the future, because your offspring is simply an output of the union of your genes. And if the genes are defective, of course, if the genes are defective, we cannot do otherwise. We do not have, again, as I've said, technology at the moment that would address the reinventing or reframing the genetic composition. So if that's the case, the problem is genetic by nature. We cannot prevent diabetes to happen, but we can prevent the occurrence of further complications. So if we know that embedded in the person is increase of blood sugar or increase of glucose in the blood, so we can address the diet component, or we can have, or when we know that because of the genetic makeup, defective genetic makeup, there is problem in the eyesight or the vision. So we can develop programs that would facilitate safety for these people because they have poor eyesight. So maybe we can have uh, a safety component in our environment. Example, in the school, we can have a like a wider uh, roads or covered courts, or we can have a lights every time for these people with difficulty for their sight because of diabetes mellitus. So these are responses in a way of supporting our students or our faculty members with problems, maybe for example because of diabetes, or if the problem is of kidney problem, so how can we be of help to these individuals? So maybe we can assure uh accessible drinking potable water because they have problems with the urination following kidney problem. So all these are preventive still to further the complication, but to people with problem already with the genetic makeup, then we cannot do otherwise. And should we wish to have a healthy offspring, for the adolescents or for the teenagers, then this is your best period to contemplate how can you ensure that your health is well taken care of before marriage or before, having a partner or making a family of your own. You have to be careful also in choosing your partner. Those are components of preventing the proliferation of the malfunction genetic makeup. Because again, when these people are genetically have problems, then that would be part of their life all throughout. And the role of the care provider is more on the supportive and the assistive aspect, no longer on the avoidance of the disease to happen. That is why in the presentation I made mention about the support system and the core group that may empower these people, no, in order to advance with their life.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
All right, thank you. Now we next to the next question. Comes from the chat. Good morning, sir. I Ari Kusnanti from Credit Transfer class. I have a niece whose mother has a history of DM. She menstruated when she was 8 years old. Is there an influence between parents with DM and the age of menarche? She is currently 11 years old with a height of uh I'm sorry, she is currently 11 years old with a height of 162 centimeter in BMY is overweight. Does this condition put her at risk of developing DM? And what can be avoided to prevent this? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the question. Um, the history of your either mother or father having diabetes mellitus predisposes you or anyone to be having a possibility of diabetes, but it is not an automatic condition wherein you usually obtain or you usually have also your diabetes mellitus. Okay? Again, but you are prone to that. You are at risk to that because of your genetic composition. But it doesn't mean that you will have diabetes right away. Okay? And with the next question of the BMI, I think we need to reconsider if that in the family, if it's part of their genetic makeup that most of them are uh, slow or is of height higher than like 162 centimeter. But I noticed that you have you are an overweight. So the overweight, as I've mentioned, is a risk factor. So that you need to address. Okay. Yes, that is putting you, the genetic makeup of your mom or your mother predisposes you to have a diabetes, but then again, it's not right away. It's not right then and there automatically that you also acquire diabetes. The overweight is non-negotiable, meaning to say that is one of the risk factors that you will acquire diabetes. So, regardless if your mom is not having diabetes, but you are overweight based on your BMI, then that means that you need to correct or address your weight or to control your weight to prevent you from acquiring the diabetes. Of course, this can be avoided, as I've said, because diabetes is not communicable, meaning it is not passed through genes. This is non-communicable disease. It is sedentary in nature, meaning because of our work, because of our lifestyle, that we acquire the increase of blood glucose. So if this is non-communicable, if this is acquired because of the food we eat. Therefore, chances are we can prevent or with hopes that we can also avoid diabetes from being acquired. So with the question of um, overweight, yes, that is you need to address. The diabetes is non-communicable, therefore, it is something preventable and is avoided as well. And uh, it is not a right then and there thing for you to acquire diabetes, even if your mom or your father has diabetes, because it's not communicable. It is not passed through genes.
Anissa, I'm sorry, Mr. Chu.
Sorry, sir.
Okay.
There's some problem because the signal is unstable.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Jewelry Acob. Okay, I will read the next question. Comes from Miss Yati Nur Indasari. Good morning, sir. My name is Yati Nur Indasari. I have two questions. One, first, how to reduce sugar consumption even though on average in our environment all food ingredients contain high levels of sugar. And the second question is, it was explained earlier that one of the risks for DM is diet. What is a safe diet to avoid diabetes? Thank you.
Well, as I've said, sugar is not just merely coming from the sugar per se, but anything that we have taken into are rich in glucose or sugar. Even water has sugar or glucose in it. So all, like the food, like the rice, your vegetables, they have natural sugar or glucose in it. So therefore, the the best way is to have a controlled amount of your diet composition. No, so it must be properly distributed or equitably available food on your plate. Okay. So example, you're asking of the safe diet. There's no such thing as safe diet because the diet will be solely dependent on the kind of work or activities of daily living or the kind of like yes in work engagement that you have in your daily basis. Should I say that for the gym enthusiasts or those mountaineers or those who are into strenuous activities or those whose work is demanding a lot of energy, no? Those who are in like on the farm, for example, or anything which the line of work is demanding much energy, way much energy than that of people working in the office or sitting at their offices, for example. That means to say that they need to load bigger amount of food or volume amount of glucose or sugar because that's how they process or convert their glucose into consumable energies. But uh, the safe diet tells us to have equal representation on the food components based on the pyramid. Should we say there must be representation of the protein in your diet, enough representation of the carbohydrates or nutrients in your diet. Okay. So that tells us that the safe and balanced diet is dependent on the nature of work. There's, as I've said, there's no such thing as safe diet for everyone. And sometimes when you go out from that usual diet composition, there will also be changes felt in your body. Say, for example, there was a mentioned earlier that the person is fond of coffee. And when you say that coffee is not good, and when the person changes that habit, there was also effect that into his or her body. So that means to say that the diabetes can only be controlled or is eliminated at its maximum, but with no particular strict adherence to this defined diet. The diet should be based upon of course, your resources. Uh, it would also be very impractical for you to, to have a kind of food which are not found in your own locality. Of course, you have to be dependent on your environment, on what is available in your workplace, what is available in your locale, what is available in your market. So that means to say that the structuring, no, the diet composition is dependent on the available resources. That's why I have to go back with my presentation that it is self-discipline and control over self on the consumption of food, the amount or the volume of food are essential rather than the kind of food or the ideal food that you have to partake. So that's in that sense, we can decrease the episode of diabetes complication, or we can decrease the amount of glucose in your blood level.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Jolre Acob. Next, we move to the next question. Comes from Talita Salsabila from the chat. Good morning, sir. Permission in advance. I'm Talita Salsabila. I came from the second semester of a Diploma 4 in midwifery. Permission to ask, why do smokers have a higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes, despite being more commonly associated with lung disease? Are there specific substances in cigarettes that can lead to diabetes?
There's no specific cigarette component which leads to diabetes, as far as I know. Yes, it is true that your smoking or not cessation of smoking predisposes the person to a common lung diseases. That's the most associated problem when a person is smoker. But when we go back with the definition of DM, there is viscous, there is concentrated blood. And so one of the purposes or function of the blood is to carry out oxygen, nutrition, and vitamins throughout the body. So what happens when there is diabetes is concentrated blood. And why smoking is one of the factor for diabetes is the caffeine or the nicotine rather, the nicotine will attach to your blood molecule, which now arbors, which will now compete to the oxygen and to the nutrients. Instead of being carried out into the system, it is now the nicotine that is being distributed, which now leads to further concentration or the viscosity of your blood. So that means to say that the nicotine is trying to arbor or to destroy the oxygen and the nutrition that is supposed to be delivered into the into the systems using your blood system. That's the reason why smokers are also having diabetes, or smoking is a factor leading to diabetes. There is no specific element, the way I understand, from that cigar leading to diabetes. It is the nicotine trying to harbor or to harbor the oxygen and nutrition to be distributed in the body, which causes now the concentration or the viscosity of your blood. So that adds to the problem when there is wound, there is poor healing of the wound because there is poor oxygenation to that area.
Thank you, Mr. Joel. Okay, we move to the next question. It's from Umi Zahra Polkesma on the chat. Good morning, sir. Permission in advance. I'm Umi from the credit transfer class. Permission to ask, how about intermittent fasting? Can it prevent a diabetes mellitus, especially in adolescents?
Yes, the principle of your intermittent fasting is eating, for example, for 8 hours, and for the next 16 hours, there is no food intake. Well, that is advised if you can. Well, it has something to do with the body clock, no? If you are okay or fine to that kind of diet pattern, then be it. But remember, as an adolescent, the diet is different from fasting. The diet is still eating 3 equal square meals in a day and not skipping any of this with a proper representation of the food as required based on your BMI. The fasting is intentional because you deprive yourselves from eating food because you don't want to increase your body weight at all. What happens when there is fasting is the stored energy or the stored that you have in the body will be converted as a form of energy source, and that becomes the end product is a ketone product. So as I've said, the fasting is okay if that works well with you. But in the adolescence, wherein most of your career in adolescence is very engaging, you engage in sports actively, you have a lot of outdoor activities, your academic life is also demanding, although you are just sitting, but it keeps you like thinking way beyond. Therefore, you need to have a good source of energy. So in that sense, fasting, the way I see it, is not ideal, but proper diet, proper loading of glucose in the 3 square meals. But then again, you have to ensure that that pattern of eating, that pattern of dieting is working well to you on your end. Um, it is not preventing diabetes mellitus at all, because the problem of diabetes again is the the problem of the insufficiency of glucose and the absence of, I mean, the insufficiency of insulin and the absence of insulin, type 1 and type 2 respectively. So in diabetes, I think it is best for you to have proper diet over than fasting. But when you have a good body response about intermittent fasting, and if that works well with you, well, you have to continue that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Joel, for the answer. Now we move on to the last question from the chat. It comes from Unifa Halfastin. Good morning, sir. Permission in advance. I'm Unifa Halfastin from the second semester of Diploma 4 in Midwifery. Permission to ask, what about people with diabetes mellitus who clearly need to reduce their sugar intake, but they also have hypoglycemia, which really needs sugar intake? What should they do?
That's a good question. Those with diabetes, because of high glucose, but at times they become hypoglycemic, meaning they would have like some dizziness or cold clammy because of the decreased supply of glucose in the body. What should they do in order to address hypoglycemia at that time is to have an immediate source of glucose. One of that is you may have your candies with you. You may have your fruit juice with you. You may have your crackers, your biscuits or crackers with you everywhere you go, because anytime you may experience those symptoms leading to hypoglycemia. And the danger is when you have hypoglycemia, uh, if you are walking, for example, you may fall from walking, which gives you further harm. You may lead into fracture that may lead into like what do you call this, fracture or wound or whatsoever because of hypoglycemia. So they really have to take in sugar in in that time being. So you have to have a readily available or ready made or readily available source of glucose in your bag, for example, or in your pouch. No? So your sugar that constitutes your crackers, your fruit juice, or your candies. Maybe 5 to 10 candies in your packet or in your bag should, in case of emergency of hypoglycemia, then you have a readily available source.
All right, thank you for the answer, Mr. Joel. Since our time is limited, the previous question will be our final discussion topic. And thank you for all for your active participation in the discussion. Let me summarize the key points discussed today. The conclusion is it's crucial to control sugar intake among adolescents to safeguard their future health. Diabetes, especially type 2, poses a significant threat globally and particularly in regions like Southeast Asia and Indonesia. Prediabetes, obesity, lack of exercise, and poor diet are major risk factors. Adolescents with type 2 diabetes face various challenges, from diagnosis to long-term management. However, prevention and control strategies such as monitoring blood sugar, maintaining a healthy weight, consuming nutrition foods, exercising, and fostering discipline and support system can mitigate this risk and ensure a healthier future for the youth. Okay, for Dr. Jill, would you like to provide a closing statement? I'm sorry, Mr. Joel. Would you like to provide a closing statement for us?
Okay. First, thank you for having me around. It's part of our internationalization partnership with Malang and BSU to be delivering topic as part of our initiative for future engagement with your institution and our institution as well. Thank you for this opportunity. And I hope to see everyone, and some of your faculty will be coming over to our university. And hopefully also our faculty members will have the chance to visit in your institutions. Dr. Wiwin and Dr. Nani.
Isa. Isa
Yeah, and
Pahari.
Tika, yes, also are able to visit the Visayas State University. And that's the beginning of the different projects and collaborations to advance our academic pursuits of both institutions. I know that there is an ongoing funded research on diabetes from Malang to our institution, and we continue to pledge our commitment to be working with you, especially on your mandate to eradicate malnutrition and diabetes in your own the community. We share the same problem or issues, health issues in the Philippines, and we are much excited to be implementing the projects between institutions and between countries. Again, my final words for the students is to be always knowledgeable on the state of health that you have. Remember that the pre-diabetes is asymptomatic. We never know that we already have these condition until we get tested. That's why we need to have a support environment and an environment where everyone is not experiencing stigma so that we can immediately or we can early address the problem. Thank you and makasi everyone.
You're welcome, Mr. Joel. Once again, I thank you for Mr. Joel for your valuable insights. And now let's conclude our discussion session. I want to express my gratitude for Dr. Joel for his enlightening presentation and to all of you for active participation. Now I'll hand over the proceeding back to our MC, Rani.
Thank you to Mr. Susilawati SST Uncles for gathering our expert lecture today. We also express our gratitude to Dr. Joel Ray Acob, PhD, for his exceptional presentation. May their contribution exchange our knowledge and benefit us all while inspiring us to success with high spirit and strong determination. For the next agenda is certificate presentation. Mr. Pardon, Ms. Susilawati SST Uncles, as the head of the department, will present the certificate to Dr. Joel Ray Acob, PhD. May invite Ms. Susilawati SST Uncles to proceed with the certificate presentation. Certificate.
This is a certificate for you. Thank you very much. And today is today was fun because we meet a handsome resource person, and I'm sure our students were very happy and grateful to Mr. Joel for the knowledge given today. The vehicle easy understand, and we understand. Hopefully we can meet again another time. Thank you very much.
The audience is kindly requested to fill out the attendance report through the link provided in the chat feature. Thank you. For the next session is documentation. We kindly ask all committee member and participant to activate their camera feature. I will personally guide the documentation session. For the first slide, I'm begin to counting 1, 2, 3.
Dinar, Anora, nggak ada. Indi, Farika, Dinda, mana wajahnya ya?
For the next slide, I'm begin to counting 1, 2, 3. For the next slide, I begin to counting. 1, 2, 3. For the next slide, I begin to counting. 1, 2, 3.
Sela, Linda, Eli, nggak ada ini. Cindy, Sinta.
For the next slide, I begin to counting. 1, 2, 3. For the next slide, I begin to counting. 1, 2, 3. For the last slide, I begin to counting. 1, 2, 3. And for the last is closing. My God bless us for the big dream, work hard, and never lost sight of the incredible potential that lies within each of us. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Mr. Jure.
Thank you so much.
Ya, selalu sehat. Selalu sehat.
Can speak Indonesian, Mr. Jul?
Just little.
Oh, little.
Yeah.
Terima kasih atas kehadiran Mr.
Sama-sama.
Jul dan sampai ketemu lagi di